When it comes to streaming Sapphic content, despite the explosion of services, Netflix still has the largest library of content with, at this point in my research, about 100 films and TV shows. Even if you've long had a subscription to Netflix, I suspect there is at least a few shows you don't even know about, and today I'm going to cover 20, obscure or not, in the first part of this multi-part series. The first on this list is Elisa Marcela, a historical drama that tells the true story of two women in 1901 Spain who fall deeply in love as teenagers. To overcome societal and legal barriers, Elisa assumes a male identity, allowing them to marry in secret, which makes them Spain's first known same-sex married couple. The use of black and white serves as a stark visual metaphor for the challenges these women face as suspicions begin to arise from the townsfolk. While both women make it out alive, there is a bittersweet element to their ending. There is a lovely chemistry between the women, and I know there are a number of you who love this movie. Mine is a South Korean drama which revolves around two daughter-in-laws in a patriarchal and wealthy family who are struggling with the strict expectations set on them to conform to certain standards of behavior. One of the daughter-in-laws, Young Seo-hun, is a closeted lesbian who has fallen in love with a woman called Susie but struggled to own her sexuality and therefore ended the relationship at the time. When Susie appears in her life again, she must confront what she didn't years ago. The series has the distinction of being the first South Korean show to have a leading lesbian character, and while I don't know how it ends for the two women, I do know that neither of them dies. A show that I absolutely had to include on this list is the breakout TV show Orange is the New Black, which, along with House of Cards, put Netflix on the map as a content creator, garnering critical acclaim. The series, set in a woman's prison, portrayed a diverse cast of characters, with many Sapphic characters. We follow Piper as she arrives at the facility, having been convicted for drug trafficking years earlier with her then girlfriend Alex, who is also in jail. They then reconnect romantically. Other major Sapphic couples include Pusey and Soso, which ended in a tragedy, unfortunately, Nikki and Lorna. There is also Big Boo, Crazy Eyes, and of course, the groundbreaking trans character of Sophia Bousset, and that isn't even everyone. Safe to say it's an incredibly gay show. Next, we have Ride or Die, a Japanese film about Rei who reconnects after many years with her childhood friend Nana. When she finds out that Nana is a victim of domestic abuse, Rei helps her escape her abusive husband, and they go on the run. The line between friendship and love blurs into romance, revealing a complicated dynamic. Can they escape the consequences of their actions? The 2020 film Beauty follows a talented black singer in the lead-up to her breakthrough into stardom as she signs a lucrative contract. It explores the dynamic at play with controlling parents and a mother afraid of how stardom will make her vulnerable to attack. She escapes by smoking weed with her girlfriend, offering a small respite from the growing tensions in her life. This film, while never explicitly saying it, is clearly based off Whitney Houston's early life. However, I enjoyed the biopic I Want to Dance with Somebody much more than this. A fun, dark teen comedy, Do Revenge, is also available on Netflix, which follows two high school girls who team up to get revenge on those who have wronged them. This unlikely duo set about conquering the school, but there is more to this revenge plot than there initially appears to be. One of the two girls, Eleanor, is a Sapphic, and she infiltrates the cool kids clique, where she meets Gabby, sister to the coolest guy in school, and there could well be romance in the air. You've surely heard of this next one. Sense8 is a sci-fi Netflix series that follows 8 people scattered across the world who discover that they are mentally and emotionally linked together and are being hunted by people who feel they are a threat to the world order. Among them is Nomi, a trans woman who is in a loving relationship with Anamita. As she begins to understand her powers, she will need all the help she can get to navigate them and the threat it creates. The next one is also centered on a loving Sapphic relationship with the Haunting of Bly Manor. When Danny is hired to be the nanny to 2 young chargers in an airy manor in the English countryside, strange things begin to happen. A tender love story underpins this gothic horror story when Danny grows close to the manor's gardener, Jamie. Next we have Alta Mar, a Spanish mystery thriller set in the 1940s on a luxury ship, where 2 sisters become embroiled in investigating a murder that happens on board. One of the sisters, Carolina, meets Cassandra on the ship, and a love story develops between them. I'm not sure how well this ends though. Keeping it Spanish in period, Manual para Señoritas is a TV series about a woman who is hired to chaperone 3 sisters in 1880s Madrid. Among the main cast is Josefina, who, if you have ever watched Amar es para siempre, you will recognize Paula Ucero as she has a Sapphic love story with Esther. Atypical is a coming-of-age series focused on an autistic teenager and his family. In season 2, his sister, Casey, moves to a new school where she meets Izzy. At first they do not get along, but when they are forced to reconcile their differences is for the good of the track team they're both on, they realize they have more in common than they thought and begin to grow closer. It leads to a sweet romance blossoming between them. This next film I personally feel mixed about given the ending. It's a dark comedy thriller where Marla, a con artist, meets her match when she scams the wrong person. Marla, while being a person of dubious virtue, is in a loving and tender relationship with a woman, which certainly redeems her somewhat in my eyes. This one is not a Netflix original, but of the top 5 countries you, my viewers, come from, it can be viewed in the US, France, Germany, and Brazil. The UK and other countries where it's not available on Netflix can find it on Prime. For something a bit more light-hearted is Heartstoppers, about 2 British schoolboys falling in love. There are a number of queer people in the show, including a sapphic love story between longtime friends Tara and Darcy, and then also a wee something between Sahar and Imogen. Warrior Nun is a supernatural action series about Ava, a young woman who becomes a warrior nun fighting evil forces when she is saved from the brink of death when she is chosen to be the halo bearer, giving her supernatural powers. In season 2, she develops a romance with fellow nun, Sister Beatrice. The half of it is a coming-of-age romantic comedy about Ellie, a smart introvert who writes love letters to a girl to help out a fellow classmate, only she herself already has feelings for this girl. This story is less a love story and more about the friendship that develops with the classmate and about Ellie coming into her own. Another piece of content that is less about a sapphic love story and more about having a sapphic lead is Bodkin. It's about Dove, who joins a murder mystery podcast team investigating the disappearance of 3 people in a small Irish town as an investigative journalist. What they find is much bigger than any of them anticipated. As far as I know, there is no love interest for Dove, she's just a grumpy lesbian. The episode San Junipero from Black Mirror had to make it onto this list because at the time it aired in 2016, during the massacre of lesbian characters, it was a welcome balm, especially as Black Mirror tends to speculate on far darker, grimmer outcomes for the use of technology. The episode centers a touching romance between Yorkie and Kelly in a simulated reality where, for once, technology could work in their favor. Earlier this year, Black Mirror came out with another sapphic tale, this time about an actress, Brandy, who is set to star in a remake of a classic 1940s romance film. She is sent into a simulation where she stars opposite AI versions of the original characters. When things do not go according to the script, Brandy's love interest seems to gain self-awareness, and they fall in love. This next one is a documentary called Tig, which looks at comedian Tig Notaro as she deals with being diagnosed with breast cancer on the heels of losing her mother. It explores how she finds catharsis through sharing this diagnosis as part of her comedy routine and how it's also when she met her future wife. The last one on this list is 2018's The Perfection, a psychological horror thriller about 2 musicians, Charlotte and Lizzie, long-time admirers of each other who meet, and there is an immediate chemistry. Things, however, take a dark turn when they go on a trip through rural China together. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to be alerted to future installments in the series, and until next time, lady lovers.